All right. Well, got this thing
Hi.
kicked off today, and we have our very own Darley Newman here on the show. She's an entrepreneur, TV host, writer, multimedia producer, Emmy Award winner, and for shows such as Equitrekking. She also has Travels with Darley, Look Up, and has been on PBS, Amazon Prime, Ovation TV, and I think I also read 58 other different locations. Is that correct?
Yeah, the shows I've done have been syndicated on a lot of different networks around the world for over a decade. So a
That's
long
pretty cool.
time. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. How does it feel knowing that the things that you are doing not only are something that you like to do, but it's working?
You know, it's always like it's a long haul, I think. You kind of have to be in it for the long term to do any kind of content or storytelling. But, I hear from a lot of people who, they travel to the places they've seen on my show. They've done something to get out of their comfort zones. They've been inspired. So that I feel like is worth it. And I know that a lot of the content that I am getting to showcase, they're the lesser known stories and things that you wouldn't necessarily learn about just by, looking something up. So, and it's really that personalization that I think is important for any of the content out there, especially as it relates to history and travel.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. So I read that you were born in D.C., you grew up in Myrtle Beach, and you graduated from St. Catherine's in Richmond. How does all of that unfold?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was only in the DC area until I was like 4. And then we moved to South Carolina. My grandmother was down there. And, in her older years, it was nice to be near her to help take care of her, but she really helped also raise me and my brother and sister. So it was awesome living at the beach, and I grew up there, getting to do so many things outside, and you know, surfing. I had like did tennis, like everything. And then I ended up going in high school to St. Catherine's. I was a boarding student, so it
Hmm.
was an all girls school in Virginia. And then from there, I went to GW in DC for college, and now I'm up in New York City. So I'm kind of like riding the coast, the East Coast here, I guess.
So I also read that you studied abroad, and one of your favorite places turns out to be Florence, Italy. How
Oh
did
my
you
God,
like
that was
Florence?
amazing. I don't know if have you gotten to go over there?
I've been to Italy. Well, I've been to Sicily, and according to
Ooh.
Italy, Sicily is not Italy. So,
I like Sicily too. I mean, the food is amazing. Yeah, I Florence, Italy is definitely a place I've gotten to return to after studying abroad there, but I lived with a family, tried to learn Italian, drank a lot of wine, and studied art and film. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. I think anytime that somebody can get the opportunity to go somewhere else and, and also live with a family that is from that area, it's like that is immersive travel. That's not
yeah,
even travel, that's immersion. So it was a really awesome experience. I learned a lot about Italy and about the world and history and it really changed my perspective. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah.
yeah. No, there's definitely no lack of history over there. That's for sure.
Oh my God.
Have you been to the Valley of the Temples?
I have not. No.
Yeah, that's over in Sicily as well. And I went to the Valley of the Temples, and it's like a couple of euro to take the tour or whatever. But uh, it's I don't know. It just there's something about standing in a place where people from thousands of years, that have long gone since gone, have walked in those footsteps and done there where you're walking at that point. So
No, it's amazing, and it's such a privilege, and that's why I think it's so cool what you're doing and what so many people are doing to share content in different ways now and take people to those places because we can't get everywhere,
right,
but together maybe we can. So
exactly, yeah, for sure. So you started out as a camera person. That's kind of how you got into this media thing, correct?
yeah, so when I was in high school, actually, I was a contract camera operator for Time Warner Cable in Myrtle Beach, and definitely hauled a lot of like heavy gear and lights and things, and taped kind of some more boring government meetings, but also got to work on like a local talk show and It's great to be able to be behind the scenes and learn how the production goes together from soup to nuts. So over the years, I did a lot of different things. Filming in New York, I ended up like working as a camera person here as well, and then doing a lot of research and writing. But I think all of those different roles really helped me kind of see the bigger picture of like how to put a story together and what it takes to do a production.
Right. So it definitely gives you the appreciation for the people on the other side of that camera for sure. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that it also sharpens your skills too. I mean, if you end up doing something by yourself like a YouTube channel, you have a lot more experience.
Yeah, no, it's been so great over the years. I mean, the technology's evolved so much, and we can do so much with our phones now, which I think is awesome. And I love that now, gosh, there's so many different ways to consume content, but also to create it. And I think that's so liberating for so many people. And I think it really gets a lot of personal expression into what we can see on social media and beyond. So it's great.
Yeah, I'm going to show my age a little bit, but I still remember when you flipped on the television and the History Channel was a new thing, you know, and the 5 or 6 documentaries that they played back to back constantly on a roll. That was the most amazing thing to see something that was narrowed down to a focus on history for me, which now you can just go to YouTube and look up whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's YouTube is a search engine, so it's great to be able to kind of take a deeper dive and then, yeah, try to take yourself there without ever leaving.
Yeah, for sure. I also noticed that you had some experience with 48 hours. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I worked in a lot of different productions over the years, and 48 Hours is a show I worked on at CBS. It is a little dark sometimes because it does deal with crime, which is a bit, which rates very highly. um, but yeah, it was great to work at a big organization, and it's a big team of people that work on that series. So you kind of get very specific tasks you're chartered with, and I was pre-interviewing people who might be candidates for the show and trying to look at those stories and see if I thought they could make for compelling television, and was there a mystery there to be solved and all that kind of stuff. So I still have a lot of friends I made from working there because it's such a big organization, and
Yeah.
in New York City. But it was great, and I went and worked on some documentaries for Frontline, which dealt with history and travel, and then Bill Moyers and other productions. So really got to kind of do some diverse content back in the early days as well.
That's interesting. So, whenever you're interviewing somebody for a show like that, and you're looking for something interesting, what is it? What is it that's most important to you? What are you exactly narrowing down to try to get to?
I mean, I think everybody's interesting in a way. Like, even if they don't think they're interesting, they can be. So, I mean, for that show, it was very specific with, um, crime. But like with what I'm doing now, I get to interview and speak with like I always call it a conversation just because it is very conversational.
Yeah.
Um, I don't even go in with sometimes I don't necessarily have a list of preset questions. I just let the conversation, guide the story. And a lot of times we're exploring an area, or I'm, doing an activity with someone because I do a lot of adventure stuff. So it might be mountain biking or horseback riding or skiing or something. And then it's just a natural conversation. And, as you know, when you get to experience new places, I think the locals and the people on the ground, you may not think they're notable, like, but they are because they know,
Right.
and they know things that they didn't know they knew. So it's always fun to talk with someone, and then they realize that they're an expert in something thing or another, and it's a really nice exchange.
Yeah, for sure. And even in those conversations, sometimes whenever I'm talking to people, I play back the footage, and I notice that there are things that I don't even catch when I'm talking to them that make for the most interesting things.
Totally. And it's so funny because I've been going back to my footage because I do a podcast now as well. So I go back and I try to take things that maybe didn't make into the show, or we have longer
Mhm.
interviews that you kind of want to let breathe. And I always
Right.
think I wish we could in the show use the whole thing because there's always just that little something else that you're like, oh, I wish I could put that in, but I had to cut it for time. And yeah, it's really interesting I hear it though when I'm there. Like I'm always like, oh, I'm definitely using that or this, and something
Right.
sparks interest. So
Yeah. So tell us about the Emmy Award winning. That has to be like huge for you to realize something like that, to even know that, you know, your name and Emmy is tied together. That's pretty cool.
yeah, been lucky over the years. I think because the shows that I've been working on are all kind of unique. So, you know, the show that I have right now, it's on New Jersey PBS. It's called Look Up with Darley. It's all about architecture and history, and that has been now twice nominated for Emmys. And I think it's interesting because you can look at a building or a place and there's so many layers to the story.
Yeah.
Even a modern building might have a story behind it. Like how did they get the land, or where did it, what was there before it, or how did they transform that space? So I find that in sharing these stories, again, it personalizes the history and personalizes the experience for people. So yeah, with Look Up, with Travels with Darley, got nominated for an Emmy, and then Equitrekking won a bunch. And that was very unique. I mean, I had a show where I went horseback riding around the world for many years, and no one had done that as a show before. So it was the world's first horseback riding travel show. And
Yeah.
I thought I still think that's such a great show because you just see the world in a different way,
Yeah.
and you're immersed in nature, and you go through historic spaces and places. I rode along the old Silk Road in Cappadocia in Turkey, and I got to go to Jordan and ride with the Bedouin, and saddle up with cowboys in South America. So very exciting show, and yeah, something different that people hadn't necessarily seen before.
Right. And of course, you're taking that from your experiences as a child too, right? I mean, you kind of grew up with horses, basically.
So, I mean, I was at the beach, but every summer at camp, we did horseback riding, and it was like a family activity. So I think it's something that, when you like, I love animals in general. Like I love dogs, I love cats, I love horses. I don't know. I just think they're so special, and we're so lucky to have them on this
Yeah.
planet. So for me, I think that's it was a big part of the travel experience. And I always said, like, for that show, especially, you didn't have to know anything about horses or like horses in order to like the show, because it was, again, showing people in a different way, but also taking you through places in such an exciting way. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed doing it.
Cool. So you've traveled to a lot of different places, and I'm sure you've had a lot of experiences in those places. But what destination has personally left the biggest impact on you?
Wow, that's a good, well, probably working on the Civil Rights Trail in Alabama. That really turned the tide for me, honestly, and made me want to learn more about history and understand its importance, because I got to film that during COVID. It was the end of COVID,
Yeah.
and it was a difficult time to film. We had to try to keep everything outside, but I interviewed women who lived through the civil rights movement. I had this woman who was a protege of Rosa Parks, who she grew up sleeping on her couch, and another woman who participated in the Selma to Montgomery March as a child, and it took a lot of courage for her to do that. And getting to talk with these women and have them share this firsthand history, I thought was amazing. And they were so passionate in relaying how important it is for us to stand together and to stand up for things. And I thought that there were so many aspects to those stories that those locations really um are important to visit. And I think it's very neat too that you can go to those destinations today. A lot of the people I interviewed, they're tour guides, so you could go and actually take a tour with them. And it does share the history in that personal way. It's the power of place. It's the power of being there, but also being there with someone who lived through the history. So that made me want to keep doing what I'm doing, because it was hard when COVID hit, and we had to cancel all our productions, and there was nothing really happening on that front. And then to get back out there and to try to travel when it was so restricted was really difficult. But those stories, I was like, I understand why I'm doing this now and why it's so important. to share
Yeah,
these stories. Yeah.
for sure. You're like the third person that's been on here so far that said the phrase "power of place," and I fully believe that.
I
So,
think
you
it's
know,
totally true.
with the connection, like you're talking about connecting to people on that trail, how do you ensure that you truly connect with the locals' cultures on your traveling while maintaining an authentic experience for people to be able to be entertained by?
Yeah, I think it's entertaining because it is authentic. Um, and when we film, we just kind of see what plays out a lot of times. I mean, everything's really planned where we're going, but sometimes we come up with things that we didn't know we were going to do because we're there and someone suggests it and you just can't not do it or experience it or try it or eat it or whatever it is. So I think it's people want to see things that are authentic and they want to be able to see themselves there too. And I'm not an expert at a lot of the things I try to do on the show. So, I mean, I've done a lot of activities and adventures that you'll see me not exactly doing it right because it's the first time I've done it before, and like, but that's part of the adventure. And I think it's in that way it's fun because we can all relate to trying something that we're not perfect at, and
Yeah.
and just trying to do it and try to enjoy the experience.
Is there going to be a Darley bloopers reel coming out pretty soon?
Oh, there's some online. You can find them. Yeah, I actually the end of every one of my Travels with Darley episodes, which is it's on PBS, but then you can watch them on Amazon Prime and they're on Samsung and Tubi for free now and some other places. But the last 30 seconds of the credits is always bloopers. And people tell me that's their favorite part of the show. So we're gonna keep that rolling. There's a lot of bloopers that come. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you experienced a situation during your filming where you having to push yourself past something, maybe overcome a fear or a challenge or something outside of your comfort zone?
A lot, yeah. I mean, I spent a year doing extreme adventure stuff. I did the world's highest commercial bungee. Probably the
Oh, wow.
that was the hardest thing I've ever done from even a mental physical standpoint, I guess. It's in Macau, China. You're jumping off the Macau Tower and it's like concrete under you. It's a city. So it's pretty trippy. And it's a huge fall and you bounce and it's like,
Yeah.
but like just standing there, and I didn't go into it knowing I was going to do that day. It was on my itinerary, but I was like, I might just go up and like check it out and not do it. I just really hadn't decided. But then when I got there, the guy who was like helping guide me, he said he had done it like 10 times. And he's like, I don't know. I just felt like it was safe, even though like what's going to happen? I don't know. But it was wild. It was such a adrenaline rush. I mean, the whole rest of that day, I had to sit down after and I was like, I just need a Coca-Cola. Like, I was like, I need a Coke. I just need to drink a Coke. And then I went to this place to make egg tarts because that's very big in Macau. They have this Portuguese influence as well. And I brought home a box. I think I'm cutting out here. I brought home a box back to my hotel room and I ate like the entire box of egg tarts that night because I was like, I don't know, it's just still going from that jump. But that
Wow.
was hard. Yeah, that was difficult.
So in your travels, my channel primarily covers history content, and it's a lot of American Civil War content as well. In your travels, what's the most, I guess, the battlefield that you've visited that has had the most impact on you? A place that is just like, wow, I'm here and I can't believe I'm standing in this place.
Probably Camden Battlefield. I don't know if have you been there yet?
In South Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been.
I mean, I thought for me, Camden was like just poignant. But I think it's also because I was there with Rick Wise, who, um, he's a veteran and he had a different take on the lives lost. I mean, in the way he portrayed the story and what happened, he really brought me back in time. even though I'm standing there and there's not a lot to see. You're in the woods and you have these like pine trees, and there were some flags in the ground because they were doing they're doing research on the past, and they found these fallen soldiers. And so for me, it really hit home. My dad was in the U.S. Army. I have family members who have served, and I just feel like for me, I could really see the history so very present when I was there. And it was almost like a difficult experience to be there, but difficult in a good way, because I think
That's good.
that's where, history is not always, as we all know, like easy to to go through, to think about, to learn
Right.
about. But it's important.
Yeah. And I really think that's what it's all about, the history and the traveling itself. We're going to a place, not necessarily trying to check it off of a list, but we want to feel something, and these places bring that to us. So, as an Emmy Award winner, what do you think is the most important quality a host has to have or needs to have to make a travel show truly stand out?
I mean, I think every show is different and every person's different. I always say that whatever you're doing, you should have a passion for.
Yeah.
So, you know, I love learning new things and meeting people, and I think that's part of what I love to do. I love creating stories and writing and those creative endeavors. But I think whatever it is that you're hosting or putting on, you should have a passion for the subject, because as we all know too, it's like a lot of work goes into
Yeah.
anything. So if you don't love it, then you got to choose something that you love, at
Yeah.
least in the content world and the creative world, because you spend so much time on it. I just think it's really important to really resonate with whatever the subject is. And I started out doing a horseback riding travel show because that was one of my passions, and I thought it was a very cool way to see a new place and that people would appreciate something different. And now I'm doing a more regular travel show, but I'm mixing in history and I'm mixing in things that I think people should learn about, maybe, or want to learn more about. So yeah, those are all things that passion has to come through.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the one thing a lot of people miss whenever they flip on YouTube or they flip on PBS or anything, is they just don't quite understand how much work goes into this.
Yeah.
So, with that kind of work, what does a typical week look like for Darley?
Wow. Every day is different. Every hour can be different. I mean, right now I'm working on planning some shoots coming up, and doing research, but I'm also like promoting a season we have out now that's on PBS, and then our other seasons on Tubi. And I've been working on my podcast, so creating that content and going back to the stories. And I'm doing more research and writing on things that I think, could be good for the shows that I'm doing. I've done, this 10 half hours recently, taking viewers to sites related to the American Revolution for Revolutionary Road Trip, which is a sub-series of Travels with Darley. It's part of our series. You can watch it. And that's been really interesting and also a good challenge, because I think there's so much that's being uncovered right now as we lead
Yeah,
up to 2026. There's a lot of new history coming out, which is, I think, super exciting.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. Where did the idea come from for the Revolutionary War series?
I think it came out of New Jersey, which is, there's so much content, and George Washington spent more time during those 6 years in New Jersey than any other place. And there's just, everywhere you go in New Jersey, there's a lot of great content. And I live in New York City, it's right across the way. So that's
Yeah,
been a place that has been awesome to have a part of this content and discover. And I don't even know, I mean, I've done a bunch of half hours on New Jersey, and there's more to come. But I think the timeliness of 2026 coming up, it all just like, it makes sense. But also there's a lack of knowledge, I think, for a lot of people about some of these subjects. And I think it's important to try to, get more information out there and make it interesting for people who didn't think they were interested in it. Because you say, oh,
yeah,
I'm not interested in this time period. Well, I don't know. It's pretty interesting when you start to look at some of the stories. I've been fascinated.
yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the reservations people have with history though is just being overwhelmed with the amount of information too. I know a lot of times I've seen people go out to battlefields and they'll read a sign or two, and you just really cannot understand by reading the sign. And you're in the place and you're trying to bring it all in and you're trying to make it make sense in your head, and you just get completely overwhelmed. Gettysburg Battlefield has always been a place where I can go to and kind of get my bearings when it comes to stuff like that because there's so many storytellers there. How important do you believe storytellers are to history?
Really important, vital. Um, People who take a deep dive on a subject and then can translate it for the rest of us. It's great. I mean, we have them on my show all the time. And I mean, I just think it brings the history to life. And when someone has taken the time to really work to learn, that it's, for me, I think it makes it, that it brings it home that much more. So, whether it's being at Camden Battlefield and having someone, share their personal reflections that might be different than mine of what it's like to be there. Or Manassas is another place that I've gotten to film, that I learned so much that I wouldn't have learned if I had a national park ranger on camera, and she knows so much. I mean, she's been spending a lot of her life working on learning this information and relating it to for people to easily
Yeah,
digest. So that's huge.
yeah. I mean, they provide something, and they provide it for not very much pay. So
Yeah.
if you see ranger, thank your park ranger.
Yeah, I think the Rangers for sure.
Yeah. So we're coming to a close here, and I want to be able to turn it over to you so you can start talking about some things that you've got coming up, to make sure to put that information out there. I've already provided, in the description, a couple of websites people can go to check out some of your stuff. So what do you got going on?
So we have a new season that's out now. People can look for it on their local PBS station. You can also watch our previous season free on Tubi right now, to see some of the American Revolution content and other places as well. And I'm working. I have a new podcast out, new season of that on iHeart. It's the same name, Travels with Darley, and then working on filming coming up for another new season. I've done this will be season 13. I don't know if it's lucky or unlucky. But that's the season that I'm rolling into of Travels with Darley. So there's a lot of content out there that people can go back to, and it's evergreen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finding some new places to travel this year.
That's awesome and outstanding. Well, Darley, we appreciate you coming on here and talking to the people, that watch our channel here, History of the Waffles, and we wish you all the luck with everything you got going on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'm excited to do a deeper dive into your videos now too.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you out there. So thanks a
Cool.
lot. And until next time, this is History with Waffles, and we'll see you around. I couldn't think of a better place to end this video than right here in the middle of the woods, the Battle of the Wilderness, at the hotly contested Brocken Plank Road, Orange Plank Road. Not too far in that direction, Longstreet's wounded. Right here where I'm at right now is a place where men like Wadsworth and Hayes end up losing their lives. Families lose loved ones. Soldiers burn to death in these fields around me here. If you'll let these fields do it, they'll touch your soul.